But first, Andrew, let's start with the fact that Reform leader Nigel Farage is going to be sworn in again as MP for Clacton, having won the by-election last week. National polls, though, do suggest Reform are no longer leading the pack. Andy Burnham's Labour is neck and neck. How do you think, Andrew, how do you think Reform will try to capitalise on the win in Clacton?
I don't think they can. I mean, it was quite an impressive victory in its own right, but it changes nothing. Nothing has changed that wasn't the circumstance Reform and Mr Farage face before the Clacton by-election, and the fact that he's won, he faces the same circumstances. Let's take a step back a little bit from the day-to-day stuff. If you look at 2025, that was the year of the insurgents. That was the year that the Reform Party was shooting up the polls and the Greens were causing palpitations in the Labour Party, taking Green votes. It looked like they were on the move, that on the right and the left, the insurgents had the momentum. That was 2025. 2026 is the year in which the insurgents have fallen back. Not just Reform, but the Greens as well. Under Zach Polanski, who's had almost as many personal leadership problems as Nigel Farage in his own way. Reform has fallen down the polls, Green has fallen back to now be nip and tuck with the Lib Dems, which is where no self-respecting party really wants to be. And at the same time, you have seen, I put it no higher than a flicker of life, but a flicker of life back into the Labour Party because of Andy Burnham, and a flicker of life back into the Tories because of Kemi Badenoch. And you add all these things together, and it's now much tougher for the insurgents than it was at this time last year. You know, at this time last year, September of last year, Reform peaked at an average of 32% in the polls. It's now 2 points behind Labour in the latest Times YouGov poll at 22%. So it's a sea change, and Clacton doesn't make any difference to that underlying trend now taking place.
What Reform are trying to do, and they did this very well to great effect last summer in August when the news agenda is a bit quieter, Parliament's in recesses, host these often weekly press conferences with some fairly hardline policies. Today, their plan is they want to stop, Andrews, I'm sure you've heard, thousands of foreign nationals, including those with permission to live here, from claiming almost all benefits. It would be logistically very complicated to do this, including another renegotiation with the EU. What is the motive behind this, and do you think it's working?
Panic. That's the motive. Reform sliding in the polls. Nigel Farage has lost his mojo, so they've launched a rather unsavoury arms race on who can be nastier to immigrants. That's basically what it comes down to. And when you do that, you get into a real mess, as Reform has already got into a real mess. Nobody doubts this country badly needs welfare reform, and we badly need to cut the welfare bill. But to do that through the prism of migrants, most of whom can't claim welfare benefits until they've been in the country for 5 years, and to look at what's being proposed, it mainly hits those who have indefinite leave to remain and settled status, which means the Europeans who were covered by the Brexit deal. Now, I remember that miserable time in British politics between 2016 and 2019, when these Brexit negotiations were going on. They sucked the life out of British politics. You lost the will to live. Do you really want to return to that, given the implications it will have for, the 1.3 million Brits who have settled status in the European Union? And by the way, if you have indefinite leave to remain, it's easy as pie to then apply for a passport. 96% of those on indefinite leave get a British passport if they apply to it. Most of them don't bother because it doesn't confer any particular benefit, because you get the welfare and so on. Take the welfare away, they'll all apply for a passport and get the welfare. This is what I mean by when you're motivated simply by panic and a need to sound nastier than your rivals, you end up in quite ridiculous policy positions.
Well, actually, Danny Kruger said to us that if they want to get a British passport, they should do as if that was a sort of end in itself. But you end up with the same million people just with a passport, rather than not having a passport.
Well, that torpedoes his savings on welfare. And it's, as I say, it's an easy thing to do. People tend not to do. I mean, they don't do it now because they're Europeans. They've got European passports. It means they can effectively cut the line when they're trying to go, when they go to a European country. Whereas if you've got a British passport, you've got to join these incredible queues on the way in and the way out. But if you, by the way, most people with settled status are not on welfare. But those who are, if they want to continue to get it, they'll simply apply for a passport. 96% of them will get it. And Mr. Jenrick's, Danny Kruger's sums on welfare savings will be shot to smithereens.
The other thing I said to Danny, by the way, Andrew, which I think with my sort of punter hat on, my cynical punter hat on, is that when you're in opposition, everyone says they can cut the welfare bill and get a better deal from Brexit. Everyone says that when they're in opposition. No one does it when they're in government.
Of course not. It is easy to say. I mean, Labour said it would get a better deal, but it's made passing slow progress. And the price it would have to pay to get a really different deal would probably be free movement or accepting the writ of the European Court of Justice and all the rules of the single market. It's not easy to do. And I think that given how the whole Brexit process drained British politics for about 5 years, to reopen that now when there's a ton of things you can do that have got nothing to do with Brexit negotiations or the Brexit settlement. Look, focus on welfare should be this: not trying to beat up on migrants, not trying simply to cut the bill, but to face this problem. We have millions and millions and millions of people, up to 10 or 11 million, of people of working age who are on welfare. And yet we have skill shortages all over the place that stop house building, construction, high tech, and all the rest of it. A proper, serious, grown-up policy would be to move these people of working age off welfare and into work. In the process, you do two things. You would save on welfare payments, big time, and you would garner more tax revenues because they'd be in work. That's grown-up politics. I don't hear much of it during this silly season of the summer of 2026.
I think there's something in that.
Times Radio Breakfast with Nationwide. After 4 years of fairer share, they've given back over £1.5 billion of profits in total to eligible members. T's and C's apply.
22 minutes past 9, still with us, Times Radio presenter Andrew Neil. Now, the US Middle East Special Envoy, Jared Kushner, has met with Hamas in Egypt to discuss the implementation of the US-backed Gaza peace plan we talked about this time last week. The former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, was also in attendance yesterday. Andrew, does this feel significant, like we are a little bit closer to peace?
I think it is significant, but perhaps significant in that it's more the last chance saloon for this deal than closer to peace. I mean, it's been a feature of the Trump administration that they've been prepared to be in direct talks with Hamas, which is a designated terrorist group by the US State Department, as it is by the British government as well. Normally, US administrations would not deal with designated terrorist groups. Trump has been able to do so. It's almost a year since the ceasefire was be put in place, but progress towards any kind of possible peace deal has been passing slow. And I think this is a last desperate, it's not the right word, I don't think. It's not desperate, but I think it is a sense that after this, we got nothing left to try to begin direct talks again with Hamas. And Jared Kushner is now off to Israel to speak to the Israeli Prime Minister there to see if something can be done. You need to see this in the context of a peace deal that's going nowhere and peace prospects in the Gulf being as low as ever. Indeed, we're beginning to learn that Iran intends to up the ante in the Gulf. So there isn't much prospect of peace there. I don't think Trump wants two broken peace deals on his hands Whether it will in the end move the dial, I'm not so sure. It's a very difficult matter of phasing. The Israelis understandably want clear evidence that Hamas is going to give up its weapons, all its weapons, even if in a phased way. It wants to see this, and it wants to be sure, where are these weapons going? Are they going to get in the hands of another Palestinian group, which at some stage, if the circumstances came around, can just hand them back to Hamas again? I think at a time when there's an Israeli election coming up, and it isn't popular, even if Mr. Netanyahu isn't that popular, his hard line with Hamas is popular. It isn't that popular to do a deal that does not guarantee to the people of Israel that Hamas will be properly and fully disarmed.
Yeah, that seems to actually be at the crux of the disagreements, doesn't it? Because what kind of guarantee could be put in place that mean Israel would feel satisfied to do something we are pretty confident Hamas won't want to do, fully disarm?
Well, Hamas got to where it is by being armed. It won an election all these years ago in Gaza, and then never had another election, and then through force of arms established a dictatorship over the strip of Gaza, and then, as we know, launched attacks on Israel, culminating in that terrible one 3 years ago. So I understand why Israel wants pretty foolproof guarantees that if it is to withdraw, and I would like it to withdraw, I think the sooner it gets out of Gaza, the better, that it isn't just handing Gaza back to Hamas again. And I think it's difficult to square. In a way, it's simple, in that it's a phasing operation. Okay, you give up 20% of your guns and weapons, we'll withdraw 20% of our forces. Do another 20%, we'll do the same. It should be simple, but when both sides are so deeply hostile to each other and suspicious of each other, is hard to do. And I give the Trump administration credit that it's still trying to do this. I mean, the ceasefire was built on pretty flimsy ground, but if they could achieve this, and there is a technocratic government ready and willing to take over, there are third-party forces ready to go into Gaza to help keep the peace, not Israeli, not American, or whatever, then it would be a way forward. It's certainly worth a chance. I just don't give it too big a chance of success.
How helpful is it to have Tony Blair at the table?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, he knows the Middle East back to front, but he's also regarded as very party-free, very pro-Israeli, and not highly regarded by a lot of people involved in the process. I don't think it can do any harm. He's got the Good Friday Agreement behind him. He has known how to bring about peace in various circumstances. He's also known how to declare war, but that's another matter. Look, I'm quite surprised that the Board of Peace is still a thing. I mean, I'm quite surprised that it still really functions. And if it can pull something off here, which so far has looked well nigh impossible, then maybe after all it will deserve its name, the Board of Peace, and Mr. Blair is part of that board.
There we go. Well, I suspect, Andrew, we'll be talking about this story again because it's not going to be fixed anytime soon.
I think so, and perhaps not with good news either.
No. I mean, it's one of the things that's so hard to think of. We talked about this at the very beginning of this program. It's very hard to think how this actually resolves itself because it's fundamentally oppositional for very obvious reasons. Forces in play, isn't there? And once you abandon the idea of a two-state solution, which we kind of have done, then where does this end up going? The actual destination is so hard to even envisage.
Well, you end up with the Israeli Defense Force really occupying, I think it's at least 50% of Gaza at the moment, with hostilities still taking place. There were more bombing runs, I think, last week, with Hamas, suppressed, degraded, but still operating. And you end up, therefore, in an unsustainable position that no side seems capable of moving out of, which means that Gaza itself remains war-torn, a heap of rubble, with no progress for its people whatsoever. That's where we are. That's the misery, the grim future that currently beckons.
And that's exactly right, Andrew. Now, let's finish on something to try and cheer us, if this is indeed cheery, although I'm not sure I'm qualified to have an opinion on this. Are you qualified to have an opinion on this? Apparently, grey is going out of fashion when it comes to paint. Homeowners are ditching grey interiors and minimalism in favour of bright colours and cosier interior design. I'm looking at your background, Andrew. It's quite cluttered. There's lots of photos. This looks like a sort of stone effect as your...
Cluttered? It's a work of art.
That is clutter. That is. Look at how many photos. There's too many picture frames.
It's my office. I'm the only one in here, other than little Scrubber the dog to keep me company.
Scrubber the
She's
dog.
having to sit out in the heat of the moment because I didn't want her barking. And that's the kind of cruelty you're inflicting on my little dog for the sake of a radio broadcast.
It's charming rather than cluttered.
Wow.
Thank you, Rose. A woman of taste and distinction, I can see there, unlike her co-presenter.
It's been said
anyway, all other than this office here, which is my own little space, my own little man cave, my walls are all kind of cream white. So I'm not that qualified. I actually rather like grey, metallic grey. And it was fashion, but welcome to the fashion cycle.
Yeah.
All these decorators they have to make money. How do you make money? You make money by saying this is the new fashion. Your walls are all grey. No. That's not fashionable anymore. Paint them red, blue, red, white and blue. Be patriotic. And of course they all change. I rather like the grey. There was also a time when I had my shutters painted a rather distinguished, tasteful mixture of grey and green, which for a period was rather fashionable. It's just a way of keeping the economy going, and within another 4 or 5 years it will be. Have you thought of grey? It's rather fashionable. It's coming back again. Which the lesson is, don't change. The lesson is, don't change. Never throw out an old suit, an old shirt, or an old tie, because it'll soon be back in fashion.
Buy a new wardrobe, basically. Grey is good because you can put one, like how you have done, Andrew. You can put lots of artwork on top of it, and it won't detract.
Yeah, you can fill it with clutter, and no one minds. We learned that the most popular.
I'd just like to talk to Rosie for this interview. I don't think I need to listen to Stig.
To be honest,
carry on, Rosie. You're doing very well here.
And just to be honest, you're not going to be alone in that by any means at all. Anyway, the most popular Dulux colour is Egyptian cotton, which is white with a bit of grey in it. So there you go.
That's pretty close to what I've got on my walls. And here's the thing, I'm not going to change, because they may be about to become unfashionable, but they soon will be fashionable again.
Don't go changing
like this shirt.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't fashionable. It is now. It won't be. But in 5 years' time, it will be again.
Has that shirt ever been fashionable? I merely asked the question.
Well, excuse me, it's a Ralph Lauren.
Oh, dear me.
That's it. I'm going to have to call Mr. Lauren. You're not making friends and influencing people this morning. Rosie, have a word with him. He needs an intervention.
He's wearing a gym top. So I think maybe you should just,
a gym shop.
Keep your opinions to yourself.
All right, we need to end this. I don't want to offend the great engineer.
I think, Rosie, you have just brought the conversation to a suitable end.
That's fair enough.
And looking at the time, perfect.
On Times Radio. On Times Radio, the most famous newspaper in the world.
You can see it for yourself.
Bye. Gotta stop there. Gotta stop you now. Good to speak to you. Bye. There we go. Andrew Neil, the curiously fashionable Andrew Neil, there as ever on a Monday.